Sir, it's good to see you. I'm very excited about this case. Talk to me about this because this is not they're not the ombudsman as they portray themselves to be. It is just like a hate campaign they wage against people they don't like.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And thanks for having me on and covering this important story. Look, I believe in the right to free speech as a foundational principle of our republic. And we're in a war against radical progressive tyrants who will lie, cheat, and steal to take that freedom away from Americans. The allegation here is that Media Matters used fraud and an enterprise to solicit money from Missourians and then used it in a market manipulation to attack the last platform dedicated to free speech in America. And we can't let that happen. We've launched an investigation and we're going to root out any lies, any deception, any fraud, uncover exactly what went happen here, hold wrongdoers accountable, and ultimately protect Missourians and our right to free speech.
And that's the big thing too, because they were getting money. They were soliciting donations from people and acting as though it was going towards this campaign to clean up X or something to that effect. Like it was like Elon Musk was purposefully running these advertisers their ads next to pro-Nazi content, which that's such a ridiculous claim to make. But they've never ever gone up against, someone like yourself. They've never faced this type of heat before, ever.
Well, it's important that we continue to push this investigation forward. I know the Attorney General down in Texas is conducting a similar investigation. We're hopeful other states will join in because it's important that we present a united front here. Media Matters is built on lies. Again, this is a radical progressive advocacy group masquerading as a news organization, but they're no such thing. But I would point out, too, here, the allegation is that they've lied in two different ways. Number one, they lied when they solicited donations from Missourians in order to defraud advertisers on Twitter. But then they also lied when they manipulated the algorithms to juxtapose controversial speech and actually emphasize controversial speech next to images of the advertisers. This is enormously problematic. This is market manipulation. That's a whole different line of legal authority that might be a fount of authority to go after them. But I would point out that, if you look at the lawsuit that Elon Musk has filed, one of the facts that he asserts in the lawsuit is that there are more than 500 million X users. And that when they tried to replicate what Media Matters did, in one instance, they could only generate the juxtaposition of controversial speech next to the advertiser in 1 out of 500 million instances, and in another instance, in 2 out of 500 million instances. Now, think about that for a minute. The odds of winning the Powerball are 1 in 292 million. So you have a better chance of winning the Powerball than replicating what Media Matters did. Again, this is market manipulation at its worst. Why were they doing it? In order to destroy free speech in America. That's why we've got to continue to fight back. And investigations like this are so important.
We're talking with Missouri Attorney General Andrew Bailey. This is an interesting kind of like multi-pronged approach to this because he's going after for defamation, which I know is very difficult to litigate. That's it's tough. And you're focusing on the fraud aspect because I think that's a great argument, especially if they've made this knowing it was an empty accusation and it was just designed to maliciously tarnish someone's character, which is what his case will focus on. They were trying to solicit and raise money off of that.
Yeah, again, if Media Matters doesn't like what's being said on Twitter, they should offer counter speech, not rip off Missourians in an attempt to manipulate the marketplace to shut down the last platform dedicated to free speech. But as you pointed out, they hate X because they can't control it. Look at the rest of big tech and how it cowers in fear and succumbs to government censorship. We've exposed that in our First Amendment suit, Missouri v. Biden. We've been first out of the gate on this issue. We've also litigated against the gag order placed on President Trump. We are dedicated to free speech in America. And what Media Matters is doing represents a new front in this war where radical progressive advocacy groups will manipulate the marketplace to destroy forums of open public, free, fair, and open debate if they can't control that debate. I mean, this should frighten all Americans.
You are doing what conservatives wished elected officials had done for like 20, 30 years. And you're like you're like really actually doing it and calling these groups to account, which brings me to my point of nobody knows where their money comes from because they don't have advertising. They're not like a website. It's not like the New York Times online. It's not like the Examiner. It's not like Daily Caller. Is that something that I know that there's a whole process to go through. Is that something that you look to perhaps coming up in this case?
Yeah, absolutely. Again, we're going to see where the evidence leads us. We've demanded certain documents be retained as we, generate subpoenas to go after those documents, and it's going to take time to review them. But I'll tell you again, there are several founts of legal authority here to bring to justice wrongdoers. I mean, like I said, number one, if Missourians were defrauded in this enterprise to solicit contributions for a nefarious purpose, I mean, that's problematic under
Mm.
the Missouri Merchandising Practices Act. But there's also an element of this. If you're manipulating the marketplace to benefit other market competitors, there's an antitrust angle here too. And so it's going to be important to look at these documents and determine exactly who was involved and at what level. But at the end of the day, at face value, you can look at the fact that Media Matters had to go through 4 or 5 different steps. And one of the steps they had to use, they had to do an endless number of times to get the juxtaposition of the controversial speech next to the advertisers. That is market manipulation. Why would they do it? Who benefited? The only reason to do it is to destroy X, the last platform dedicated to free speech in America. And that's why it's so important to fight back.
That's huge. Have you spoken to Elon Musk at all? Have you all talked about these cases?
I have not yet. No. At the end of the day, we in the state of Missouri, we've got an obligation under state statute to protect Missourians. But again, we were first out of the gate on this
Yep.
issue, and this is just a new front in the fight for the freedom of speech. And I think the question before Americans is: are we going to be allowed to enjoy the legacy of freedom handed down from the founding fathers and protected by previous generations and codified in our Constitution? Or are we going to let radical, progressive tyrants control what we think, what we say, what we hear?
Amen to that. We're talking with Missouri Attorney General Andrew Bailey. You also filed suit over the St. Louis Pediatric Transgender Center. That's a mouthful. Their refusal to turn over records. This is an ongoing case because you've been trying to get documents to them for some time. And the Biden administration has even tried to obstruct in this case. Talk to me about this.
Yeah, Dana, you're exactly right. Look, I want Missouri to be the safest state in the nation for children. And so, to that end, after a whistleblower came forward last February and made some very credible and specific allegations against the clinic in St. Louis, we launched an investigation, the first of its kind in the nation. We pushed that investigation forward. We have received and reviewed numerous documents, but there are other batches of documents we've requested. I mean, the investigation is not a fixed in time thing. You start pulling on a thread and it leads you to other aspects of the investigation. And that's what this is. And so we requested additional documents. In the meantime, the General Assembly enacted a statute. We defended that statute from legal attack in court. We're the first state in the nation to successfully defeat that kind of legal attack at the trial court level and defend a statute that ends child sterilization in Missouri. But we can't let the investigation go. We still got to look back, hold wrongdoers accountable, and demonstrate to the public what went wrong here so we can ensure we have the proper systems in place to prevent it from ever happening again. The clinic has said, well, HIPAA, we can't turn the stuff over, but they should know that HIPAA has an explicit textual provision that carves out when you have state regulatory bodies that are conducting this kind of investigation. So we anticipate that they had previously agreed to turn over the documents and then changed their mind after the federal government got involved and told them not to. And so we can't let Joe Biden shut down this investigation. Again, it's important to the people of the state of Missouri and to continue to protect kids here in the state of Missouri.
We're going to be watching both of these cases, especially the Media Matters one. I can't wait to see how that ends up. Andrew Bailey, the Attorney General for the great state of Missouri. Missourians are very lucky to have such a vigilant watchdog like yourself going, watching their backs on behalf of them and against all of these I don't know, these bad actors out there. So all my family lives there. They're very lucky to have you. It's good to have you on the program today. Merry Christmas to you.
Thank you, ma'am. Merry Christmas to you as well.
Of course.